Okay, this week we're kind of moving on from slope stuff. We're starting something different, and this is something that you are going to use all throughout math. So we are doing laws of exponents. We are not doing all of them today. I'm just starting you guys out with a few, but this is really going to help you guys when you get to algebra, because this is a major section in algebra, and if you have this head start already and already kind of know what you're doing just a little bit, it's going to help you so much. So please make sure if you guys have questions this week that you ask me questions. Okay, we're going to make kind of a little table, and I would suggest making sure that you write this down too, because this is kind of your cheat sheet on how to do these. So first of all, if I have a number and then it's multiplied by another number, but it has like an x or something like that with it, like x to the fourth or something, that means that I am going to do a times b, and then I'm going to have my x to the fourth at the end or whatever. So this looks like the same thing. However, for example, if I have 3 times 7 x to the fourth, I'm going to have 3 times 7, which is 21, x to the fourth. So that just means you multiply the numbers. Everything else stays the same. Okay, my next one is if I have some x raised to a number, which we're just going to say is m, times x raised to another number, which is n. What happens when we do that is we're going to keep the same base, so that number on the bottom, but we're going to add these two exponents. So we're going to do m plus n. So we add them. So for example, if I have x to the fourth times x to the third, that means I'm going to do x to the fourth plus the third, and I'm going to get x to the seventh. So that's super important that you make sure you add those numbers, not multiply them, because that is a different rule. So this is the case where I would multiply those. So if I have x, and I have some parentheses, and x is raised to the m, and then on the outside we have an exponent of an n also, that means we're going to multiply those exponents. We're actually going to have x to the m times n. So for example, if I have x to the fourth, and then it's raised to the third again, I'm going to get x to the 4 times 3, which is just x to the 12th. So this is the case when you would multiply. Now, the very last thing that we have that we're going to do today, is when we have something in parentheses, but it's more than one thing. So on the one above that, we just had an x. Now we have an x and a y. We could have a number in there as well. But the point is we have more than one thing. We have an exponent on the outside. That means we have to almost kind of distribute that. So we're going to have x to the m times y to the m. So for example, if we have, let's see, 4x, and it's all raised to the third. That means we're going to have 4 raised to the third times x raised to the third. So you almost kind of distribute this 3 to both of these. And then obviously we could simplify 4 to the third, which would be 64, and then we'd have x to the third. So those are all of our rules. You should have this written down somewhere that you can look back a whole bunch, because you're going to have to use them a lot today. Okay, these are straight from your homework. So you should have almost half of your homework, I would say, done by actually it is about half of your homework done by the end of this lesson. The other half you should be using as practice problems on your own. So the first thing we have is these 3's out front. The first thing we need to do with those is we need to multiply them. If we go back to our rules, we can see that we need to multiply those. So we have 3 times 3. Then we have an n squared and an n to the third. So let's simplify this first. We have 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. Then we have n squared and n to the third. Let's look back at our rules, and that looks like this rule. So we can see that we need to add those exponents. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to have 9, then we have n to the 2 plus 3. That's going to give us 9n to the 5th. So our answer is B. Okay, now this one is a little bit deceiving. If there is no exponent with a variable, the exponent is automatically a 1. We call them a ninja 1. They're there, but you can't see them. So if it doesn't have an exponent, it is a 1. So let's put our numbers together first. We have 3 times 2, and then we have m to the first times m to the first. So the first thing we're going to do is 3 times 2, which is 6, and then we have our m to the first, m to the first. And that is just like this one over here. They're right next to each other, so we add their exponents. So we have 6 to the m, or times m, to the 1 plus 1, which is 6m squared. So our answer would be B again. Okay, now this third one is the same thing. It is just a little bit longer. So we're going to put our numbers together. We have 2 times 2 times 3. So those are gone. Now we have times x squared times x to the third times x to the third. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So we have 12x squared times x to the third times x to the third. And that is just like this rule up here again. So we just add the exponents. We have 12x to the 2 plus 3 plus 3. So we have 12x to the 6, 7, 8. So 12x to the 8th would be answer C. Okay, now let's do the same thing again. We're going to have 3 times 2, those are our numbers first, times k squared times k squared. Then we're going to have 3 times 2 is 6 times k squared times k squared. Remember, we add our exponents, so we have 6 times k to the 2 plus 2. So 6 times k to the 4th. So the answer is C. Okay, so I would probably pause the video right here, and I would do problems 5 through 10 on your homework. That's just the whole first page because that's practicing this kind of problem. Now, before you start that, I want to remind you guys, just like on this one, see how our m's did not have an exponent? So we made our exponent 1. If there's no exponent, the exponent is 1. I'm going to say that again just to reiterate because I know that's where we're going to get stuck. If you have something like number 2, if there is no exponent, the exponent is 1. Okay, now this is practicing our other rule. So we are now using these 2 rules at the bottom. So when we have parentheses, we multiply the exponents. And then if we have multiple things, remember we have to distribute this exponent. Everything has to get that exponent. So you should have that written down so that you can use it for these problems. So the first thing I need to do is I need to distribute this exponent. So we're going to have 2 to the third. Now see how this x squared, it has an exponent already. We're going to keep that in parentheses. We're going to have x squared. And then the 3 goes with it because we distributed the 3 to both of those things. So now we need to do 2 to the third, which is 8. So this piece simplifies to 8. Now we need to do this other piece over here. Remember, if it's on the outside, we multiply those exponents. So we're going to have x to the 2 times 3. So we have 8x to the 6th. So the answer is A. Let's do another one. So I need to distribute my exponent. Remember, the second piece we're going to keep in parentheses. So we're going to have 3 squared, and then A to the third, and then squared. So each of those got the exponent of 2 with them. Now we need 3 squared, which 3 times 3 is 9. And now when we have these exponents outside the parentheses, remember we have A to the 3 times 2. So we have 9A to the 6th, which is B. Okay, this is one of those cases where if we don't have an exponent, we need to remember that this is a 1. If it's a 1, it's going to just be the same. So we're going to just distribute this exponent. So we have 2 squared and x squared. 2 squared is 4, and then we just have x squared. So we have 4x squared. Okay, now remember we keep this together in parentheses, but we're going to distribute this 3. So we have 2 to the third times v to the third, and remember the 3 goes with that also. So each of them got an exponent of 3. So we have 2 to the third. Well, what is 2 to the third? 2 to the third is 8. And then we have v to the 3 times 3. So we have 8v to the 9th, which is A. So these are the 2 types of problems that you're going to have, the ones that are on this page and the ones that are on the last page. So you're really only using a couple of exponent laws. Your quiz is going to be very similar to the homework, so please make sure that you are doing the homework. But this is it. Make sure you email me if you have any questions.